Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. And here in the Bible Bistro today, Psalm 119 verse 112. No verses today, only one verse. But it does go hand in hand with verse 111. So we have had this back and forth between confession and prayer all throughout this section since 105, because this is the noon section, 105 through 112. We had confession in 106 and prayer in 107. Prayer in 108, confession in 109. The statement about the enemy, which sort of was a confession and a prayer. It was a, kind of a recognition of what was going on. They've laid a snare for me, but he gives this confession, I've not erred from your precepts, which was very much like what we had there in 109. And then we had more confession in 103, and then today we're going to end up with even more confession. He says there in 112, and let me read this verse for you. I have inclined mine heart to perform thy statutes alway, even unto the end. Now, if we go back to Psalm 119, and I think it's verse 36. Let me see if I can't find that real quick. Verse 36. We had a prayer where he asked the Lord to incline his heart. Yeah, in verse 36 of Psalm 119, he makes this prayer. Incline my heart unto thy testimonies, and not to covetousness. Now, here in 112, he says, I have inclined my heart. So his prayer was answered. He asked the Lord to incline his heart to the testimonies, and now he says, I have inclined my heart to perform thy statutes alway. So we have growth. The psalmist is growing here. He's getting stronger in the word of the Lord. He said there in 36, he made the prayer incline. Now he says, I have inclined. So he's no longer asking for the Lord to do that work. He says, I've done, now it's happening. So this is, the process is, going on a pace here. Mine heart. Now, I said yesterday that 111 connects with 112 because we have there at the end of 111, they are the rejoicing of my heart. That is the testimonies of the Lord. Now he says, I have inclined my heart. So the heart is now inclined, that's rejoicing in the testimonies, but there's an outcome. This, it's not just the rejoicing, and it's just not the inclination that's wonderful. And yes, that is wonderful, but the outcome is to perform thy statutes alway. And the statutes of the Lord are something that we can perform. That is, we can do them. Remember, faith without works is dead. You can say all you want that you believe in something, but if you are never found to be doing what you believe, then do you really believe it? That's hypocrisy, friends. He says, I've inclined my heart to perform thy statutes always. So there's some performance required, and it should be seen, and it should be there. And then he goes on to say, even unto the end. Now, what's he talking about unto the end? Is he talking about the end of his life? I think so. But I think he's also talking about the end of the church era as well. Now, you say, how do you make that leap? Well, let me explain. So the psalmist, of course, looks at his life because that's what he's focused on at the moment, right? His soul is in his hand. The wicked have laid a snare for him. He's focused on what's going on around him. And so he says, unto the end, he's thinking about the end of his life, because he has an enemy that wants to end his life. But as we look at this from our perspective, thousands of years later, we read unto the end, and we know that performing God's statutes is still something that needs to be done. It's still something that's required of all of us. So no matter what saint, no matter what generation, we're talking about performing the statutes of the Lord until the end of our church age. When he comes back and rights all things and sets Israel up in their kingdom and the church is his bride, all things will be performed unto that end. I hope you'll join me again next week and we will look at the next section beginning in 113. Now, see you then on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.